Hi, my friend. It is so nice to have you here. Let us slow down together before we begin. Take a breath. Let your mind grow quiet. Now, imagine a cold evening in old Russia. Snow falls softly outside a golden palace. Inside, candles shine on tall mirrors. Silk dresses move across marble floors, and every quiet step hides a secret. In this worn young girl is watching, listening, and learning. She stands near the edge of the room, still and careful. Her name is Sophia. She has no crown yet. She has no army. She has no real power in this place. But deep inside her quiet heart, she carries a dream much larger than the palace around her. One day, the world will know her as Catherine the Great, the woman who crossed into Russia as a stranger, survived a loveless marriage, and rose to rule one of the largest empires on earth. But before the crown, before the portraits, before the legend, there was only a young girl trying to survive. She was not Russian. She was not powerful. And almost no one expected her to rule. So how did a foreign girl, with no army and no voice in Russia, become the woman everyone had to obey? Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Timeless Stories. It is so good to have you here. Let us take a breath together. In this story, you will discover 3 quiet but powerful things. First, you will see how a young German girl named Sophia entered Russia with no real power, then slowly learned the language, the customs, and the rules of a dangerous royal court. Second, you will follow the lonely heart behind the crown. Catherine wanted love, respect, and freedom, but every choice came with a price. In a palace full of smiles, she had to learn who could be trusted and who could not. And third, you will understand a deeper idea. Power is not always taken in one loud moment. Sometimes it is built slowly, through patience, study, courage, and careful decisions. Catherine's life is not only a story of an empress, it is a story of becoming. A stranger becomes a ruler. A quiet girl becomes a voice that Russia cannot ignore. So make yourself comfortable and let the story begin. Before she became Catherine the Great, she was a young girl named Sophia Augusta Frederica. She was born on the 2nd of May, 1729, in Stettin, Prussia. Today, that place is part of Poland. Her family was noble, but not very powerful. Her father was a prince, but a small one, serious and strict in his ways. Her mother was different. She was ambitious. She watched the world carefully and wanted a brighter future for her daughter. Sophia grew up in a small world, but her mind was not small. She loved books. She learned languages with ease. She watched adults carefully, noticing the way people spoke to each other, the way they bowed, the way they smiled when they did not mean it. Even as a child, she understood that life was not only about beauty or comfort. It was about reading people. It was about understanding rules. In those days, royal girls had very little choice about their own lives. Marriage was arranged by families. A daughter was expected to become useful. Her value came from the family she could marry into, not from her own mind or wishes. But Sophia wanted more. She did not want to disappear quietly into someone else's story. She wanted a life that mattered. And then one day, a message arrived. Far away in Russia, Empress Elizabeth was searching for a bride for her nephew, Grand Duke Peter. Peter was not just any young prince. He was the future ruler of Russia, one of the most powerful countries in all of Europe. For Sophia's mother, this was more than news. It was a door opening. If Sophia married Peter, her name would matter. Her family would rise. Her future would no longer belong to a small German court. So at only 14 years old, Sophia left home. The road to Russia was long. The air grew colder with every mile. The world grew wider and stranger and new. And with every step, her old life moved farther away. When Sophia arrived in Russia, everything felt larger than life. The palaces were bright with gold. The rooms were wide and very cold. The ceilings stretched so high that candles could only light the bottom half of each tall wall. And everywhere she looked, eyes were watching. Heavy fur, coats, shining candles, long halls filled with quiet people who looked at her without speaking. She did not yet understand their language. She could not read their faces easily. Sophia understood something very quickly. Russia was beautiful, but it was not safe. This was not only a royal court. It was a world of secrets, rules, and hidden danger. One wrong word, one wrong bow, one small mistake in front of the wrong person, and a young foreign girl could lose everything. If she wanted to survive, she had to change. Not slowly, not later now. So she listened, even when she could not fully understand. She studied the faces of servants and nobles alike. She watched every smile and every silence. She repeated Russian words quietly at night, alone in her cold room, even when her head ached with tiredness. The little girl from Germany was beginning to disappear. And slowly, carefully, a new person was being born inside her. Now here is where the story becomes interesting. Empress Elizabeth was not an easy woman to impress. She was the daughter of the great Peter I, the man who had built Russia into a modern empire. Elizabeth had grown up watching power used boldly. She herself ruled with confidence, beauty, and great authority. Everyone in the palace understood her position. When Sophia first stood before her, the young girl was nervous, but she was also careful. She bowed with deep respect. She spoke gently and slowly. She watched every small reaction on the Empress's face, a raised eyebrow, a soft pause, slight movement of the mouth. Elizabeth saw something in her. Sophia was young, but she was not careless. She was polite, intelligent, and clearly willing to learn. There was no pride in her posture, no impatience in her eyes, only attention. But there was one condition. To marry into the Russian royal family, Sophia had to accept the Russian Orthodox faith. This was a serious step. It meant leaving part of her old identity behind, her German name, her German prayers, the religion of her childhood. Orthodox means following a particular ancient form of Christian faith. It was the heart of Russian religious life. Sophia agreed without hesitation. She was baptized, and she received a new name, Catherine Alexeyevna. From that moment, something inside her shifted. A new name was only the beginning. Now she had to become Russian in heart, in language, and in spirit. Catherine practiced Russian every day. She read Russian books. She listened to servants speak and repeated their words quietly to herself. She wanted the palace to see her effort. She wanted Empress Elizabeth to trust her. And slowly, people began to notice. This young foreign girl was not lazy. She was not careless. She was serious. She was working. Catherine learned an important truth early. Respect is not given only because of a title. It must be earned, little by little, day by day. But what would happen when she finally met the man she was meant to marry? When Catherine finally spent real time with Grand Duke Peter, her hope began to fade. He was her future husband. He was also the future emperor of Russia. But he did not seem ready for such a heavy crown. Peter was careless and childish. He loved toy soldiers more than books. He enjoyed small games more than serious duties. While Catherine studied Russian, watched the court carefully, and trained her mind every day, Peter seemed trapped in a much younger world. He did not understand her. He did not admire her mind or her effort. He did not offer the respect or the warmth she had hoped for. Catherine looked at him and felt a quiet fear growing somewhere deep inside her. If this man ruled Russia, what would become of it? And if he controlled her life, what would become of her? She did not love him. She did not trust him. And slowly, she stopped expecting him to protect her. In 1745, Catherine married Grand Duke Peter. She was only 16 years old. The wedding looked beautiful from the outside. There were bright candles, rich clothes, music, food, and celebration. To the court, it seemed like the beginning of a royal dream. But behind the golden doors, Catherine felt deeply alone. Their marriage became cold and distant very quickly. Peter spent his time with his toy soldiers and his private games. Catherine spent hers with books, languages, and careful observation. She needed patience. She needed strength. She needed a life beyond Peter's long shadow. And in that lonely palace, she began to search for something Peter could not give her: attention, warmth, and a sense that she was truly alive. But the story did not end there. Catherine was not content to simply wait and suffer. She read deeply and widely. She studied the ideas of European thinkers, men like Voltaire and Montesquieu, who wrote about law, reason, education, and better government. These were dangerous ideas in some parts of Europe. But Catherine found them useful and inspiring. She also found comfort in relationships outside her marriage. In the royal court, she met Sergei Saltykov, a young Russian nobleman. He was confident, charming, and full of life. He noticed her. He listened to her. He gave her the attention she had been missing inside her cold marriage. Their connection grew slowly, then deeply. Catherine learned something important from this experience. In a royal court, private feelings are never only private. Every relationship carries a shadow. Every secret carries a price. Love can bring comfort, but it can also bring danger. She began to understand that to survive, she needed more than patience. She needed people who trusted her. She needed allies. So she watched the court carefully. She learned which nobles were unhappy with Peter. She listened to which military officers doubted his abilities. She never spoke too loudly. She never moved too soon. She was building something invisible and very powerful, a network of quiet trust. If you enjoy calm stories like this, consider subscribing to Timeless Stories. New stories arrive every week, and each one helps you learn English naturally through history. By the time Peter became emperor in 1762, Catherine was no longer the quiet foreign girl who had arrived in Russia nearly 20 years before. She had changed completely. She understood the palace. She understood the army. She understood how quickly power could shift and how quickly a person could be destroyed if they were not ready. Peter now had full power over Russia, but he used it badly. He offended the army by admiring Prussia, a country many Russians saw as an old enemy. He angered the church. He treated Catherine with cold and public disrespect. He seemed not to understand how dangerous it was to lose the trust of the people who held the guns and carried the prayers of the nation. Catherine watched everything. She did not move too soon. She waited. Catherine knew she could not act alone. A crown needs more than courage. It needs people. It needs trust. It needs timing. So she had been building slowly, in silence. She spoke with powerful nobles. She listened to church leaders. She sent careful words to military officers, not asking them to support her, but making them believe that Russia itself needed her. And then there was Grigory Orlov. He was a strong and respected military officer and one of Catherine's closest companions. Through him, she reached the soldiers directly. His brothers and their allies helped carry support quietly through the ranks of the army. Peter stood more alone with every passing day. On the 28th of June, 1762, Catherine made her move. She dressed in a military uniform. She rode out to the soldiers in St. Petersburg. She was not only a wife now, she was a leader asking Russia to choose. The soldiers looked at her. They saw a woman who had studied their country, respected their traditions, and earned their trust. They saw a leader standing tall. They saw the opposite of Peter. They shouted for her. Soon she marched through the capital with military support behind her. The city did not rise against her. The doors of power began to open. Peter was shocked. He was afraid, and he was almost entirely alone. He tried to resist, but the strength had already left his hands. Catherine's supporters captured him and asked him to give up his crown. In one bold day, the quiet foreign girl became Catherine II, Empress of Russia. And this is the moment everything changed, not only for Catherine, but for the entire empire. Catherine was now Empress of Russia, but the crown did not bring peace. A crown can shine in the candlelight, but it can also feel very heavy on the head. Around her, many people still doubted her. Some nobles saw her as a foreign woman who had no natural right to rule. Some remembered Peter. Some waited quietly, hoping she would fail. Catherine understood the danger very well. Taking power is one thing. Keeping power is another. So she began to work, harder than most rulers her people had ever seen. She supported schools, art, science, and new ways of governing. She wrote letters to thinkers in Europe. She collected books and paintings. She invited artists, teachers, and experts to bring new ideas into Russia. She opened one of the first schools specifically for girls in Russia. In a time when many women were expected to stay silent and invisible, this was a remarkable step. But change was difficult. The nobles did not want to lose control. The church feared too many foreign ideas. The old system of Russia moved slowly, like a river in winter. Then came a dangerous challenge. A former soldier named Yemelyan Pugachev appeared far from the capital. He made a bold and frightening claim. He said he was Peter III, Catherine's dead husband, still alive and ready to return. Many poor people believed him, or wanted to believe him. They followed him because they wanted freedom. They wanted land. They wanted someone to say that their suffering mattered. The rebellion spread. Towns burned. Nobles were attacked. Catherine's throne suddenly felt less safe than it had looked. She answered with force. Her army crushed the rebellion. Pugachev was captured. Catherine survived. But she also learned a hard truth that she never forgot. An empire can look completely strong from the palace, while quietly shaking in its villages. She expanded Russia's borders through long and difficult wars with the Ottoman Empire. She gained access to the Black Sea, which gave Russia new ports, new trade routes, and a stronger position in the world. By the end of her long reign, Catherine had ruled Russia for 34 years. She had built schools, expanded borders, collected some of the greatest art in Europe, and made Russia one of the continent's most respected powers. She was not perfect. She made hard choices. Some of those choices caused real pain to real people. But she was extraordinary, and she was real. She died on the 17th of November, 1796. The woman who entered Russia as a stranger left it transformed. And now, here is the detail I promised you at the beginning. Many people remember Catherine through ugly rumors about her private life. Stories that were invented by her enemies, spread by people who feared a powerful woman and wanted to reduce her to something small. These rumors were not serious history. They were attacks. This is why Catherine's legend teaches us something important. Sometimes history does not only record what a person did, it also carries what their enemies wanted people to believe. But the real Catherine is far more interesting than any rumor. She was intelligent, patient, ambitious, and brave enough to build a life larger than anyone expected of her. Catherine the Great was not born with an empire in her hands. She began as Sophia, a young girl far from Russia, unsure of her place in the world. She crossed into a strange country. She learned a new language. She survived a painful marriage and a dangerous court. And she waited carefully and quietly until the right moment came. Then she chose courage. Her life was full of light and shadow, and maybe learning English is a little like that too. You may begin with simple words. You may feel unsure of yourself. You may feel like a stranger inside a new language, moving carefully, trying not to make mistakes. But every sentence you understand becomes a small step forward. Every story you finish becomes proof that you are growing. Every word you learn becomes a door opening into a wider world, into new ideas, into a version of yourself you have not yet fully met. Catherine learned a new language to enter a new world, and you are doing exactly the same, one calm story at a time. Tell me in the comments, what surprised you most about Catherine's life? Was it her patience, her courage, or the way history tried to reduce her with rumors? If these peaceful stories help your English grow, subscribe to Timeless Stories and join us every week. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you in the next story.